Well, yes, it
No,
starts with item one, public speaking.
Yes, okay then, public speaking. And what's item 2?
So we are now live. So for those people that are just joining us, we are, the chairman has yet to join the meeting, so we are going to start with the vice chairman.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Planning and Regulatory Committee meeting, 14th of October 2020. We start with item number 1, which is public speaking. Officers, please.
If members could excuse me, we just have the chairman on the phone a second, could you?
Right.
Just bear with me.
Thank you.
I'm afraid, councillors, the chairman is still struggling to join the meeting. Are you happy for me to read his introductory notes before we move on to public participation, in the hope that he can then join us and the vice chairman leads the meeting in the meantime?
Yes, Mr. Kemp, would you please do so? Thank you.
So, on behalf of the chairman, I'd like to welcome everyone to the 6th virtual meeting of the Planning and Regulatory Committee. Before we move to the formal agenda, we have a few procedural housekeeping issues to deal with. This meeting is being held under the virtual meetings regulations using Microsoft Teams. Decisions made by the committee will have the same standing and validity as if they had been made at a standard meeting held at the town hall. For those members of the public watching the meeting on the YouTube link, Planning and Regulatory Committee members often use more than one screen during the meeting to look at committee papers. And this can mean that it looks like they're not paying attention or looking directly at the camera. I can show you they are. It's simply that they are looking at other parts of the committee papers. We are streaming today's meeting live on the internet, and a recorded version will be available to view within 48 hours on the North Somerset Council website. For members of the public who have submitted written statements under agenda item 1, I can confirm that your statements will be read out by officers for the benefit of everyone watching the meeting. The membership of the committee has been agreed by all political groups and the chief executive, and consists of 13 members adjusted to achieve political balance. Only those members of the virtual committee or their nominated substitutes may make decisions on each agenda item. Members, would you please ensure that your audio is muted when you're not speaking? When you wish to speak, would you please indicate this by using the chat function? Do not use the hand signals function. I'll invite each of you to speak by way of a queue system. Please only use the chat function to indicate your wish to speak and for official council business. If members are joining by telephone, please would they ensure they are muted when not speaking by pressing *6 on the telephone. You can unmute by pressing *6 again.
Yes.
If you are leaving the meeting or returning to the meeting at any point, would you please ensure that I'm aware of this by using the chat function? This is paramount in respect of any disclosable pecuniary interests where you are not permitted to participate in the agenda item by law. You should immediately leave the meeting before the start of any debate on any item where you have a disclosable pecuniary interest. A Democratic Services Officer will confirm when you've left the meeting or rejoin the meeting following determination of the agenda item. In terms of voting, when proposing a motion, would you please indicate by the chat function that you wish to speak and wait until invited to do so. Please then clearly state what you are moving, for example, the recommendation in the report, particularly for the benefit of the public. If you're seconding a motion, please again clearly indicate you wish to speak and wait for the chairman to call you. Voting on planning applications will be a roll call. The solicitor will call each councillor in turn by name in alphabetical order. The vote will be taken on the basis that you have heard the full debate on the application and state clearly if your vote is for, against the motion or abstain. Please remember to turn on your microphone when voting and mute when you have spoken. If you have not heard the full debate on the application, please state so and your vote will be marked abstain. This will ensure that the vote is accurately recorded and will enable members of the public properly observe the vote. At the chairman's discretion, voting on procedural matters such as confirmation of the minutes will be done in reverse order and en bloc. That is, the chairman will ask for votes against the motion first, then abstentions, and all other voting committee members in the meeting will be taken en bloc as voting for the motion. Before we move to the agenda, are there any questions from councillors? I think the chairman has now joined the meeting, so perhaps that would be a time for him to take over from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Are there any questions? In which case, I'll move to agenda item 1. Public addresses by members of the public to be read out by officers. And we have 3 for today's meeting. The first address relates to agenda item 6. Lynn Glosier is against the proposal and her address will be read out by Michelle Chesterman.
Thank you, Chairman. A full-blown vehicle repair centre right next to our home should be refused. If consent is granted, please conditions strongly to protect residents' health and living conditions. It would be appreciated if all recommendations made by the noise consultant, Mr. Rock, are incorporated into conditions by members at this stage. For example, provision of a 2.5 metre boundary wall and siting of the compressor to the south side of the workshop. Likewise, would all members include all assumptions made by TPG into conditions. For example, closed doors, 3.5 metre fence to car wash, 10 metre limit per hour on compressor use. Mr. Rock's report shows the TPG report to be seriously flawed. In particular, TPG measured noise levels in the wrong place, ignoring the shielding effect our homes currently receive from the existing buildings. The original and revised report by Mr. Rock has been admitted in the planning portal. I have submitted a complaint and requested that the unrevised report should be given to members at this meeting. I would like officers to confirm that the noise mitigation report in condition 17 will be examined by Mr. Rock and that his further recommendations will be adhered to. I would also like officers to advise how conditions 12 and 15 concerning pollution and noise levels will be monitored and regulated. Are members convinced these matters would give residents genuine protection? We also need conditioning to ensure that the car park is closed to boy races at night. End of statement, Chairman.
Thank you very much. The next address also relates to item 6. Liam Farbrace supports the proposal and his address will be read out by Hazel Brinson.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a written statement on behalf of Enterprise Holdings UK Limited in support of the proposed planning application at Winterstoke Road, Weston-super-Mare, BS233YT. The application has been made as our current location on Western Trade Park is no longer fit for purpose and is closing. We see this development opportunity as a perfect way of continuing our UK growth strategy whilst continuing to serve the town and local community of Weston-super-Mare. We have seen an increased demand of business over the last 18 months in our existing location, and due to our service offerings, we have outgrown the facility. We are, as always, committed to ensuring that we can continue to offer transportation needs to residents, local businesses, public and private sector industries, and no more so than in the past 4 months, keeping the area moving as we have been supplying cars and commercial vehicles to all key workers. Police, councils, food delivery companies and most importantly, the NHS during this unprecedented global pandemic. We see the proposed site as a perfect location to improve our services whilst upgrading the facility to ensure a more professional image of our brand, a better customer experience and a better place for our employees to work and achieve their own ambitions. It has a better geographical location in the town, bringing us a lot more central to the residents and other businesses. We will also be introducing our Enterprise Car Club offering to the site, which allows customers 24/7 access to vehicles if they so require. It is a more sustainable option to business travel and allows app-based technology to give people transportation relief whenever they need. We are aware that there have been a few issues raised by the local community on the planning portal, and we would like to address those in this forum. The main concern from the development plans is noise. The planning applications of other sites that we have moved to or redeveloped have required acoustic reports, and they have found that the noise levels are not of a concern and would not disturb standard conversation. Most of the noise is purely the noise generated from general car movements. The site is adjoined to a very busy A road, so there will be next to no additional noise levels being produced to a level of concern for residents. Also, within the same concern, there is the element of IRG Body Shop coming onto site as a subtenant. We refer to the acoustic reports from alternative sites, and within those projects where we have sublet to IRG, their facility is in fact quieter than that of Enterprise. IRG and their on-site repair booth is a minor repair facility. Jobs will be completed in a day and no body panel changes, welding will
3-minute warning, Chairman.
Will be conducted on site. Do you wish me to continue, Chairman?
For another 20 seconds or so.
Okay. I hope these explanations have helped dampen concerns for this development to go ahead, and also raise some valuable points as to why it's a good thing for the town of Weston-super-Mare, local businesses and the residents. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this statement. End of statement, Chairman.
Thank you. The last address relates to agenda item 7. David Richins is against the proposal, and his address will be read out by Michelle Chesterman.
Thank you, Chairman. We are writing to stress in the strongest possible terms our opposition to the latest retrospective planning permission request submitted by number 5 Warry Close, and wish to reiterate our continued objection after reading the P&R committee report. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the area, the Elms is a very popular housing estate consisting of around 300 homes, renowned for its consistent style and blending together of individually designed homes to create an attractive rural street scene where no houses dominate. It is for these reasons that many residents have chosen to live here for many years, with several extending their homes in a sympathetic manner, maintaining the overall character and integrity of the property and development. Therefore, when local residents were asked to comment on the original application for the extension at 5 Warry Close, there was little concern as the plan appeared totally in keeping. Nobody had any reason to doubt the application wasn't being submitted in good faith and that the work would be carried out as proposed by applicant. The approval conditions granted satisfied the majority of those affected, and there was only one objection. Residents took comfort from the firmly worded decision document and the policies contained in the Residential Design Guide. However, the original planning application has turned out to be a complete fabrication. Designs believed to be acceptable were submitted on behalf of the applicant, approved. Subsequently, the conditions attached to the approval have been blatantly contravened and are being forced through planning via the retrospective route. What we now have is a property that looks completely incongruous both within the cul-de-sac and the overall development, and adversely harms the character of the street scene. It is inconsequential that this street scene is not on a main road, but is on the periphery of the estate. The roof line, without the softening effect of the approved second gable, which we would classify as architectural detailing, together with completely different coloured tiles from any other dwelling on the estate, makes the roof appear overbearing from any perspective and now dominates all neighbouring homes. Published conditions and policies within the previously mentioned Residential Design Guide. If NSC failed to take firm action and reject this non-compliant application on the first occasion, it has been seriously challenged. Our feeling is it will set a precedent and that other developers will take the opportunity to replicate the actions of this individual, even though it is in breach of the council's policies. It is for these reasons that there has been an unprecedented number of objections, 30 plus, from local residents, and it would be outrageous if the overwhelming weight of feeling was ignored and a decision was based only upon a brief visit by, and in the subjective opinion, the case officer. By agreeing to this proposal and ignoring the objections and concerns of local residents makes a mockery of the planning process, and we call into question the commitment of the local planning authority to protect the interests of residents and the environment enjoyed on the Elms development itself. End of statement, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 2, apologies for absence. Hazel.
Apologies, Chairman. Yes, Councillor Anne Harley has sent her apologies.
Thank you. Item 3, declaration of disclosable pecuniary interests. Use the chat function if necessary. Michelle, any comments?
No comments in chat, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Item 4, minutes of the meeting 16th of September 2020.
May I propose, Chairman, that these minutes are accepted as a true record of the meeting?
Well, I have to go through the formal procedure on the voting.
Right.
So, Hazel.
Oh, Chairman, Richard Kent has requested to speak.
Richard.
Chairman, not so much on the minutes, but I'm sure you're coming to it. But we, in the changeover between yourself and the Vice Chairman, we didn't do the roll call. So that's something we might want to just do at some point as to who's in attendance.
Do you mean the roll call of members and officers?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just finish the minutes and I'll take that as the next item. Michelle, any more comments?
No more comments, Chairman.
Okay. In which case, are there any members wishing to vote against the motion? Michelle?
Nothing in chat, Chairman.
Are there any members wishing to abstain?
Nothing, Chairman.
Thank you. Then all remaining members support the motion and that is carried. So Hazel, can we go back to the roll call of members and officers, please?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Bird.
Present.
Councillor Bridger.
Present.
Councillor Bryant. Councillor Cartman.
Present.
Councillor Cole.
Present.
Councillor Crew.
Present.
Councillor Crawford Hawley.
Present.
Councillor Cronolly.
Present.
We've received apologies from Councillor Harley. Councillor Leigh Morgan.
Present.
Councillor McQuillan.
Present.
Councillor Payne.
Present.
Councillor Westwood.
Present.
In terms of officers, we have Richard Kent, Simon Exley, Jessica Smith, Julie Walbridge, James Wigmore from Development and Environment. And from Corporate Services, we have Sue Buck, Mike Riggle, Michelle Chesterman and Hazel Brinton. That's the roll call, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 5, matters referred by Council, the Executive, other committees, there are none. Item 6, application 20/P/0262/FUL, demolition at Dewson's Yard, Winterstoke Road, Weston Supermare. Simon.
Not the demolition.
Chairman, if I can just advise members, there's no written update to this application. The council has received the complaint, as you heard in the public speaking from Delegation. That will be dealt separately under the complaint. Also, the point that Mrs. Glosier is complaining about refers to a email correspondence to the council.
Chairman, it appears that Simon's connection is frozen.
Yes.
Just bear with us a moment and see if that can recover.
Okay.
Simon, I don't know if you heard that, but you did freeze for a minute there. We now can't hear you.
Hello?
Thank you. We can now hear you, Simon. Thank you. We can now hear you, Simon.
All right, thank you. Sorry, having some IT problems. The issue then before members that the complaint has asked for the application to be deferred from today's meeting so that previous correspondence concerning be considered. However, these have been considered by the latest detailing, which was in the noise report that has been assessed by and the council's noise consultant. So the committee report in front of members is up to date, and we don't see a reason to defer the application until a future meeting. If you want to proceed with the presentation, Richard.
So can councillors see the application site?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
members will have to bear with me because
Yes.
I have not got the presentation, but I can talk members through it. The application site is in the red line. As you can see, the existing buildings on the site are towards the rear of the site, away from Winterstoke Road, and the existing buildings join some housing which is set further to the north. If we can have the next slide, please, Richard.
So we're now showing the next slide, which shows the site in a bit more detail with the parking layout.
Yeah, the slide shows that the site is split into two parts. The front part, which was site fronting onto Winterstoke Road, would have a single-storey building in the middle, which would be the office for the car rental business, and with parking around it. About halfway across, there is a divide, and the rear part of the site would be for car parking and for a building that will be used for car repairs and spraying. If members look as well, just to the bottom right of the plan, there is what seems to be just like an enclosed area. That is an access that comes out from the site onto Winterstoke Road, and we'll show a picture of that in the at the end of the presentation. And in the top right-hand corner, the site does adjoin the end of Langford Road, and there is a gate there, and that is subject to a condition that would close that. And again, we have a photograph showing that. Since the previous application application. Siting of the building where the spraying and car repairs will be undertaken has been moved further away from the houses, and you can just see in the top corner the nearest house, which is number 44. To the top left of the site are some industrial units that are on an adjoining site. Can I have the next slide, please, Richard?
So we're now showing a plan showing the noise levels.
Yes, this was a plan that the council's environmental health consultant was measurements, and as a result, further work was done to measure them, and the environmental health consultant has given advice about the need for conditions. He isn't objecting to it, subject to suitable conditions, and as members can see, the nearest house on the right hand side is number 44. If we can have the next slide, please, Richard.
So we're now showing a plan with vehicle moving.
Yes, this plan is to show how large transporter vehicles road will drive around the reception and office building at the front and be able to leave that way. It also shows the access gate on the bottom boundary of the site that gives access onto another route that can go onto Winterstoke Road. We can have the next slide, please.
So we're now showing a plan that just shows the external unit side elevations.
Yeah. The bottom part of this plan shows the doors that would be on the front that would gain access to the inside of the building. The provision of the top left-hand side shows where the units would be for the fumes, and there's another door on the rear side of the property. We can have the next slide, please, Richard.
We're now showing the unit details.
This shows the 4 car bays that will be provided with the doors on the front of them. The cars would then be go inside each of the bays for work to be undertaken on them. The next slide, please, Richard.
Again, elevations.
This would be the elevations of the reception building and the office building, which would be towards the front part of the site. The next photograph, please.
So we're now showing the first photograph.
This is a view taken down the access way looking towards Winterstoke Road. This access way also serves marble mosaics, which is to the behind the first where the photograph was taken. So that will be the exit route, and that is covered by conditions. If we can have the next photograph, please.
We're now showing the next photograph with the closed off area.
The photograph shows the gateway that would give access to Langford Road, and the proposal is to remove this palisade gate and to provide a brick wall in that position and not to allow any vehicular access to Langford Road.
We're now showing the next photograph with the wall and the barbed wire.
This photograph is taken from Marble Mosaics Yard, looking across the boundary wall between the site and Marble Mosaics Yard, and it also shows then the grey house is number 44 Langford Road, and it shows that it does have windows facing onto the site. If we can perhaps go back to the first slide, Richard, showing the site. as members have heard from the public speaking from Mrs. Glozier, there is concern about the conditions, and the conditions protect the neighbours from unnecessary and unreasonable noise. We're suggesting that there is one condition number 15, and that this condition 15 reads: the level of noise repair workshop, including compressor and extraction to the car wash sensor units, shall not exceed a rating level of 45 dBA at any point on the northern site boundary. And we're suggesting that the words are added to the end of that is: the paint repair workshop shall only be operated with all the doors fully closed as specified in the noise impact assessment report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this valuable and prominent site has been vacant for the past 3.5 years. Sorry, I'm getting a bit of feedback.
Carry on.
Okay, start again. This valuable and prominent site has been vacant for the past 3.5 years. It's high time it was brought back into use. Dewson's moved out in May 2017, and I'm concerned that if this application fails, it could take another 3.5 years to see it brought back into use. A deteriorating site right at the entrance to the centre of Weston. There's business rates and jobs going begging, but the good news is that this site is within Weston settlement boundary. It's within Weston town centre, and this application will provide 10 full-time and 2 part-time jobs, all of which could be reached easily on foot, bicycle or public transport if staff so wish. This whole area has a 100-year-old industrial history, including the famous Wazuma pottery destroyed by some German tourists in 1942. Dewson's used it as a builder's yard open to the trade and public, and it's surrounded by other industrial and warehouse buildings. On a site visit, committee members were able to hear other activities were ongoing on nearby sites, including a very large scrap metal yard just a short distance to the east along the old Winterstoke Road. However, all the noise coming from those other sites were intermittent and within acceptable limits. I don't believe that proposed use of this site will add unacceptable levels of noise for the residents in Langford Road on its northern boundary. Although I accept that they've got used to no noise at all for the past 3.5 years whilst the site has been empty. However, with respect, those residents cannot expect that situation to continue. This is, and has been for decades, an industrial site with all that entails. All traffic will come and go, as you've heard, via Winterstoke Road at the front of the site, at least 100 yards from the nearest houses, which are in Langford Road at the back. Any work that may be necessary to returning vehicles, incidentally, has been moved further away to the south, that is, away from those houses, and I stress the application is for minor repairs only, not full bore, as announced by Mrs. Clothier, who spoke as the first objector. There has been a considerable cooperation between the applicant and officers, so I'm confident that neighbours' fears will prove to be unfounded. If there are any noise pollution with low-level vibrations for compressors, it will be minimal because it will only take place during the restricted hours of working, 8 till 5 on Mondays to Fridays, when many residents will be at work, and 9 to 12 on Saturdays, with no operations of the paint repairs workshop, car wash, or any HGV deliveries on Sundays or bank holidays, in accordance with policy CS3 of the core strategy. The officer's report also highlights that additional information has been submitted detailing the design of the air handling and acoustic quality of the repair and paint spray facility, using airflow technology whereby 90% of the air is recirculated, the remaining 10% going into the atmosphere via a 200mm vertical duct, particulate-free through a triple filtration system. Additionally, the spray the spray booths are now 30 yards from the nearest house. Noise from panel beating, etc. will be limited to a maximum of 45 decibels at any point on the northern boundary. And I should also point out that the prevailing winds in Weston are westerly, whereby the houses to the north of the site. I can understand the fears of local residents who are concerned about noise, fumes, etc. But there's been a considerable amount of planning gone into the design and layout of this site, and I'm confident that neighbours' fears will prove to be unsubstantiated, given what I've just said. As regard the written concerns expressed about the risk of flooding, well, if those were ever realised, the whole of Weston would be underwater, so I believe this objection is fanciful. Old Winterstoke Road is already home to a variety of well-established business activities. Vehicle body repairs, a very large scrap vehicle yard, and closest of all, marble mosaics right alongside this site. A heavy industry making building sections mainly for the high rises. Residents have been used to all these activities for years, and I should add that, having spoken to these neighbouring businesses, all of them welcome the prospect of this site being redeveloped. About time too was a typical comment. The core strategy supports town-wide regeneration, including the centre of Weston. We also need to see the regeneration of existing employment opportunities in the area. This is a golden opportunity to bring a large and prominent site back into use, to provide employment within walking distance of the centre of Weston, and to give local people the opportunity to get rid of their cars and rent instead, saving the considerable cost that car ownership entails, whilst helping the council reach its carbon neutral target. This will be a business for the future and something central government wants to encourage. At our previous meeting, there were concerns expressed about a proposal for B2 use, which would adversely impact on nearby local residents. However, it's been established that there is no issue about a change of use from B1, which is light industry, to a car rental facility. B1 has recently been absorbed into a new category, E, with a variety of other uses. As I said before, considerable thought and planning has gone into the design of this site, and particularly to ensure that the concerns and well-being of the neighbours living beyond its northern boundaries are addressed. I'm confident that they will discover that all their reservations will prove to be unfounded. I commend this exciting application to colleagues and hope that you will give it your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Is
Councillor
there a seconder
Sorry.
at this stage?
There's nothing in chat at the moment. It's just Councillor Connolly has requested to speak.
Well,
I think I can solve both of these. I'll second it and I'll explain why in a minute.
Okay, Councillor Connolly.
So yes, thanks for that. Can I just acknowledge thank you to the officers for making that final amendment around fully closing the doors. We've had some conversations around that, so thank you. So the community that live near the site are unhappy with this proposed development, and I completely understand why. But Councillor Parker, I and some of the residents have been working towards tackling some of the major issues, particularly around noise. It's the first time we heard about this application, officers had added, so since the first time we've added the application, we've seen conditions added around noise, limiting the road access, boarding up the old entrance. There's conditions now around the operating hours, as well as the booths move forwards, although not massively as far as I would like, but nonetheless they have moved forwards. So thank you to officers for adding those restrictions. And based on that, we kind of reluctantly will accept the application, because if we were to reject it, I don't think we'd win an appeal. And sometimes it's better to control a development than it is to turn it down and leave it to the lottery of the planning appeals process. I do want to put it on record, though, that I'm completely sceptical that this primary purpose will remain as a vehicle rental site with repair elements kind of ancillary. Enterprise have confirmed they'll sublet it, and you'll also note that it's actually not restricted to repairs on their own fleet. So to me, this demonstrates that actually its primary purpose is more about vehicle repair than renting. However, we will reluctantly accept that, which is why I second this. It would certainly be worthwhile, though, I think, picking up on the practical elements around how do we measure and enforce conditions around number 12 and number 15? Because predominantly these are the areas of main concern. So I don't know if officers can comment on how we're able to measure that and enforce it. You know, is it reliant on residents or can it be more proactive?
Okay. Michelle, any other members wishing to speak?
Councillor Bridger and Councillor Payne, Chairman.
Councillor Bridger.
Thanks, Chair. Very brief, actually, because Councillor Connolly has just actually addressed one of the points I was going to raise, which was about referencing the comments from Ninglozia. Whilst one of the things she hoped we'd be able to do was to limit the amount of compressor use time to 10 minutes per hour, I'm assuming that would be totally unenforceable. I think, you know, the comments that she made about how the noise emitted from the site would be monitored and regulated is you know, it's a justified comment, but I think Councillor Connolly has just addressed that. I'd like to endorse really the comments from the vice chairman. I think he was absolutely right to say, obviously, that the neighbours have become used to that site being dormant, so to speak, but that you know, it absolutely can't be expected to continue, and the kind of use that's proposed here is sort of in keeping with the kind of businesses along that stretch. I mean, contrary to the residents' comment, I think this is an example of actually, whilst imperfect, it's an example of the planning process working quite well. You know, it looks, you know, it's come to committee. There's been active engagement from the local ward members and from other members and with the applicant and officers. And I think, you know, there's been a incremental improvement in the proposal that's come forward, and I'm supportive of it. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chairman. The last time we discussed this application at this committee, I asked why the site was described in the report as being in the town centre. I don't feel that anybody would describe this as the town centre, and I don't feel I really got a proper answer to that. And indeed, the vice chairman has just said that he thinks it's the town centre as well. And the core strategy defines it not as the town centre, but in the gateway area. I think I'm not just making a pedantic point, Chairman, because I think when we're discussing the use of this site, it is relevant, because the town centre is somewhere where we have uses such as shops, restaurants, professional financial services, and so on. But this is a commercial park at the edge of the town, at the entrance to the town, where you would expect more industrial use as well as the larger retail outlets. And indeed, there are light industrial units next door to this site. So I would like an answer from the officers, really, as to why we're calling this the town centre. Yeah, if I could, please, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Simon, do you want to respond to the comments made by Councillors Connolly and Payne?
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I have a slight delay in getting back to you. In terms of Councillor Cronley's question about enforcement of conditions, when we impose conditions, they have to follow various tests of reasonableness and preciseness. So that's when, and we should grant planning permission accordance to conditions. If a company breaches those conditions, then we are normally alerted by the neighbours. We will investigate that, and if it's an issue of noise, we will take noise readings and verify that. And the enforcement of the conditions is dealt with by the council's enforcement team. In terms of the question from Councillor Payne about the town centre, we did have a strange arrangement where the boundaries of the town centre did go out along Winterstoke Road and to the retail area at the end near Asda. I'm sure, though, that will be reviewed as part of the future local plan that we're going to produce. I hope that gives you the answers you wanted.
Michelle.
No other comments in chat, Chairman.
Okay. Simon, any more comments before I invite the Vice Chairman to sum up? Simon, you're muted.
Sorry,
You're
sorry,
muted.
Chairman. Yeah, sorry, Chairman. I've got no further comments.
Okay.
Subject to the amendment to
Okay.
condition 15.
Lovely. Vice Chairman, can you sum up, please? Vice Chairman, can you sum up, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think it's all been said. I think that we are in very broad agreement, I'm pleased to say. I think this is an exciting prospect, and you know, I have every confidence that it'll be a very successful business. I think that the amount of vehicles that will be brought in requiring attention will be fairly minimal, because I think that the application provides for minor repairs. So I don't think that there will be you know, complete wrecks coming in here, and you know, subject to a lot of noise, fumes, and everything else which goes to the repair of such cars. So I would just like to propose that we go to the vote.
Thank you. Sue, please conduct the roll call vote.
Thank you, Chairman. I will now take the vote from each councillor in alphabetical order, and for each vote taken, the councillor will be confirming that they have heard the whole of the debate, unless they state otherwise. The motion is for approval with the amendment to condition as stated by Simon Exley. So when I say for, it will be for approval, against will be against approval. Councillor Bird.
For.
Councillor Bridger.
For.
Councillor Bryant.
For.
Councillor Cartman.
For.
Councillor Cole.
For.
Councillor Crew.
For.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
For.
Councillor Cronolly.
For.
Councillor Harley's absent. Councillor Leigh Morgan.
For.
Councillor McQuillan.
For.
Councillor Payne.
For.
Councillor Westwood.
For.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 7, application 20/P/1552/MMA, non-material amendment to planning permission 19/P/0694/FUH at 5 Wherry Close, Wraxall. Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. I can see the presentation this time, which helps. If members look at the first plan of the location plan, unfortunately it's not very clear, but we'll explain it. It's in a little cul-de-sac of 3 houses. Number 3 is below the red line of the application. 7 is to the north of it. If we can have the next plan, please, Richard. This is the application that members are considering today. On the top left-hand side, you can see there's a line in the roof with the roof extension. It's carrying on the same line as the roof. There are 2 windows that are above the ground floor garage. So that's looking at the front elevation. If you look at the elevation below that on the left hand side, that's the rear elevation, and that shows 2 additional roof lights towards the ridge at the top. Those are the 2. So the changes on the front are the 2 windows above the garage doors and the 2 roof lights on the rear. If we can go to the next slide, please. This was a plan that was granted planning permission for the extension. The biggest change, as you can see, is on the top left on the front elevation, where it was proposed to add a dormer above the eaves, and the two windows on the front were joined above the garage doors. And then on the rear elevation, you can see the two approved roof lights, which were just above the eaves. If we can go to the next slide, please. This is a view going into the cul-de-sac. You can see the first house is number 3, that's on the left-hand side, just past the white car. The application site number 5 is just beyond that. If we can see the next slide, please. That's slightly closer. You can see on the house on the left that they've got carved barge boards around the dormer windows, and you can see the detailing on the house. You can see number 5 is the next house just beyond it, as you go past the end of the cul-de-sac, and then the garage right at the end belongs to another property. Can you see the next photograph, please? This is the application site. This is a retrospective application, and you can see that the works have been done. The garage on the left-hand side belongs to the first house. The extension, you can see in front of the black van, has the garage on the ground floor, which there was a garage there originally, and then it has the two windows that are part of this planning application above it. What has been removed on that front elevation is between those two windows, there would have been a small gable feature. If you can see as well, just beyond number 5, the next house down is number 7, and that has got a gable and 2 dormer windows. If we can see the next slide, please, Richard. And that's a view looking back at number 5, and you can see that's looking across the driveway where the vans are in front of the garage, and you can see the 2 windows. In terms of the report explains that this is a minor material amendment to the planning permission that was granted. Unfortunately, in the heading, it refers to a non-material, but it's a minor material amendment. The report explains that the changes to the roof tiles did not require planning permission. The removal of the barge boards, fascia boards, again, did not require planning permission. So, minor material amendment to the planning permission. I think the question for members to consider is that what is the harm in terms of the changes to the approved plans? If we can go back to the plans, Richard, please. So those plans were the approved plans, which shows the small dormer above the windows at the front and the 2 windows together. And then on the back, 2 roof lights. And then if we can go to the plans above, which were the plans members today. And that shows that the small gable's been removed and the 2 windows above the garage. In planning terms, we have to consider whether the proposals comply with the council's policies and whether or not the acceptable harm. Having assessed this, we consider that the proposals do comply with the council's policies on design, and they don't cause unacceptable harm to the area. And whilst we understand from the number of objections we've received from residents of the area that they feel that it is harmful and doesn't comply with the council's policies, I'm afraid we come to a different conclusion on it. And this is, whilst it's a very attractive housing estate, it isn't protected, such as being in a conservation area or an area where the council would have a great control over the design of such extensions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Cartman.
Thank you, Chair. I've never called something in before, so this is, I've got an echo happening here. Okay, I'll try again. That's better. Right. I've never called something in before, and I think many of you will be wondering why this is one that I and my fellow councillor Stuart McQuillan have called in, because on the surface of it, it does appear to be a minor amendment, and I am absolutely in agreement that should this house be anywhere else or on its own, that this wouldn't really be attracting the attention that it's got. But this house doesn't sit on its own. No man is an island, and no house sits completely independently, or very few. And actually this application, this retrospective application, for me goes to the very heart of what it means to have democratic oversight over the planning process. It's about, as Simon said, what is the harm? But the second question is, who decides what is the harm as well? It reminds us that planning is not just a technical exercise, that the decisions we have impacts on local communities. And it's only right that where judgment is exercised, that our residents via this committee get a say in how that judgment is exercised to incorporate local knowledge and legitimate local feeling. My objection is that in improving this retrospective planning application, we permit a significant harm to the street scene, and as a result is in contravention of policies CS12, DM32 and DM38. And this is
Oh dear.
Discuss issue 2 in the report. But I just want to quote you a number of sections of these, but just about CS12 talks about the council being committed to achieving high quality architecture and urban design that will be sought from development, demonstrating a robust design process to generate solutions that have clearly considered the existing context. Furthermore, proposals of all scales will be required to demonstrate sensitivity to the existing local character already established in an area. Now, that doesn't refer to conservation areas, that applies, in my reading, to all areas. DM32 refers that the site should, or this is for new builds more specifically, the site should integrate with the surrounding environment. DM38, when talking about extensions, says it should not harm the street scene or local area, which includes the loss of characteristic boundary features, original estate layout, landscaping, etc. So for me, the question comes is, well, what is the harm and who assesses the harm? And this is ultimately a judgmental matter, which is why it should come to this committee. It's not a technical decision easily taken by reference to plans and policy manuals. I mean, even the report, in coming to conclusion, states, and I quote here, the design of the house has, however, changed to some degree the character of the existing building, which gives a more horizontal appearance as opposed to a more subservient design of the original dwelling. And it also says the overall design, colour and style of the architectural features do not match the surrounding dwellings. So there is a recognition that this property does not match the surrounding dwellings. Now, I think the thing that's missing and that made me understand this is actually the style and uniformity of the whole estate. If anyone's familiar with it, and I've walked it many times delivering leaflets, it is actually an exceptionally good estate. I mean, we all know we have poor housing estates and good ones. This one has a uniformity of design that is quite exceptional. And nearly all the houses, if all the houses follow certain design guidelines and principles set out by the existing developer that have been maintained through the planning process since the site was built.
We've lost you, Ashley.
people move in 20.
Actually, you appear to be frozen.
Can I suggest we bring in the other board member, Councillor McQuillan, to say a few words? Then we can go back to Councillor Cartman.
It's eminently sensible, Chair. Thank you. I won't speak for long. I fully support the comments of my fellow ward member, the parish council, and of Mr. Richards, the public statement you would have heard at the beginning. I think I accept it's not a conservation area. Simon Exley makes the point well, but it is a uniquely balanced estate. It's a quality design, the sort of design estate that we're seeking when we look at new housing developments. And here we have an example where we have a really well-designed area where we're potentially upsetting the synergy of that designed area by allowing this application. I don't want to go, I think Ashley's covered the design points and the core strategy points too. It's about harm and who defines the harm and the unacceptable level harm. And the message we've heard loud and clear is that the community believes there to be harm, the parish council believes there to be harm, and the two ward members believe there to be harm. And I invite the committee to reflect on that. Thank you.
Councillor Cartman.
Am I back? Can you hear me now?
Yes,
thank you very much. I was in full flow and then didn't realise no one could hear me. Okay, so I think I don't know if you got to the point where I talked about some of the reports said that, and I'll pick up here, the overall design, colour and style of the architectural features do not match the surrounding dwellings. That's in the report. And I think the conclusion the officer has taken is that that's not significant enough to warrant refusal. And that goes to the core of the argument about who decides. And I think I talked briefly about the uniformity of style in that estate. It's an exceptionally high quality estate. And through this planning process over years, we have enforced that uniformity of style and people have adhered to it. And that's why people like and love that estate. And that's why they move there. The house is in a prominent position. I think this is where I cut off. It says it's not, then it's not if you drive a car. But it's by a footpath that's used by dozens and dozens and dozens of people every day. So I disagree with that. But I think just picking up on what Councillor McQuillan was saying when I came back in, this comes back to the point, who gets to decide what is harm? Is it officers? Is it us? Or is it actually a vast majority of the local residents who actually have to live there? And I think it rests with that democratic accountability. We are not talking here about a couple of disgruntled people who don't like it. This is 30 plus people. Originally, when this came across Stuart and our desk, we were inclined not to bring it. But actually, this is about the democratic nature of the planning process and people having the ability to raise their voice and their concerns and have it heard. And they feel it would harm their street scene. So because of that, I think I want to propose that we reject this application. Let's find what I wrote down. So we do not approve this application. It's in contravention of CS12 and DM38 of the sites and policy plan, and therefore I propose the application is rejected.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor McQuillan, I suggest you're going to second that motion.
Indeed, and I won't take up any more of the committee's time. I'm seconding that motion for the reasons given. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Michelle, any more comments?
I've got a request from Councillor Westwood to speak.
Councillor Westwood.
Thank you, Chairman. Now I'm unmuted. We had been flagged up to go and have a look at this site, which I did today, earlier on today. I'll just draw members' attention to a detail, an interesting bit of detail, the devil would surely be pleased. Anyway, the dwelling is as it is, as I understand it, as it now is, because of permitted development changes that have taken place. Whether these were brought about by the present applicants or by somebody else earlier on, the changes to the tiles and the fascia that are being requested for this extension are the same as the tiles and the fascia that are on the main dwelling. However, they're not in keeping with or the same as other dwellings around and about. The tiles of those other dwellings and the fascias and the details are not similar at all to number 5. But that comparison apparently cannot be made. Comparisons with other dwellings, which are as they were originally built, are nullified because the changes to the tiles and fascia on number 5 were carried out under permitted development. So stating that it doesn't look anything like the other dwellings apparently doesn't apply. I do wonder whether this is a precursor of things to come as far as permitted development is concerned. I do hope not. But I think we might well be heading back to the early 90s in terms of eccentric changes that householders can legitimately bring about to their houses, which then have a knock-on effect as to whether they can be whether they can then be brought into line with surrounding houses. Anyway, that's my take on it. I won't say any more.
Thank you. The only point I would make is that we've got the echo again. If this application was to be refused, I think any subsequent appeal would be problematic for the council to defend. That's the only point I would make. Michelle.
Got Councillor Crockford-Hawley and Councillor Steve Bridger, Chairman.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
Yes, Chairman. The point of a potential appeal, I mean, if we were to turn this down, there would obviously be an appeal. The grounds for defending appeal, I'm sorry, but my experience leads me to believe the grounds would be very, very thin indeed. And I would almost be prepared to put money on us losing it. And probably having cost ordered against us as well, because I think there's a certain vexatiousness about the argument for turning this down. On a purely subjective look at what has happened, I found it very difficult to look at the building and consider that it is so offensive that everybody in the neighbourhood should end up complaining. But that is purely my subjective outlook. It might in turn be objective because perhaps the neighbours have been subjective. Somebody is adding to their home where others haven't added to theirs. I go back a matter of just a few months where we had another application before this committee. I think from memory it was in Portishead, where somebody had extended their home. It was considered to be contrary to the estate neighbourhood. And guess what? Members approved that, even though I opposed it because the quality of the extension was appalling. I'm sorry, but I find the quality of this extension visually is not appalling. And I think we would have great difficulty in defending an appeal. So as much as I think Ash and Stewart have put their case very, very competently, I don't actually agree with them. So I'm going to vote accordingly.
Thank you. Councillor Bridger.
Thanks, Chair. I'm willing to defer to Councillor Bird. I think Councillor Bird had asked to speak before me, so I'll take my place. Thanks.
Okay. Mine's only a quick one, really. Is the fact that I think the visual difference on this is not the cladding and the tiling; it's the fact that the dormer's missing. And it completely stands out from the rest of the housing because of that. And is not the dormer part of the original application? And you know, do they have deliberately not included it and gone across the front? So is what in approving this, what sort of signal and damage are we sending to developers and builders? That's my point, really.
Back to Councillor Bridger.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I found myself agreeing with every word that Councillor Cartman and Councillor McGuillan said, but not with their conclusion. And I'm more in line with Councillor Crockford-Hawley. I mean, I also find it, I can't second guess, but I also find it quite odd, the number of objections that people find this so disagreeable. I mean, if this was in the middle of the estate, there'd certainly be the street scene element, I think, would become more apparent. But yes, this is on the very edge of the settlement. There is a footpath, but I mean, when I looked, I thought, well, shouldn't people on that footpath really be looking east across the countryside rather than west at number 5? And its ugly big roof, and it is ugly, but as Councillor Crockford-Hawley said, it's not appalling. And is it unacceptable harm? Not really. So it's there's a lot worse. Frankly, there's a lot worse out there. So I can quite understand why the neighbours are unhappy about it. They have to walk past it as they're doing their jogging or walking their dog. But it's just not. It's not. It hasn't. Reached, the bar has to be quite high, I think, for us to reject this one and face the consequences. So unfortunately, I'll be, whilst I buy in completely with what the proposer of the motion was saying, if that makes sense, I disagree with the conclusion. Thanks, Chair.
I tend to agree with Councillor Bridger. Properties 3, 5 and 7 are all in an isolated position overlooking countryside. So, yes. Councillor Cronley, did you wish to speak? You were waving your hand?
I wasn't waving my hand, so unless it's somebody else.
Simon Exley is requested to speak, Chairman.
Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. If I just wanted to come back on a couple of things that members have said. The issue again is that it's explained in the report, as Councillor Westwood said, that the roof and the fascia boards have been changed under permitted development, and therefore it's not something you're considering. The main change are the removal of the gable, and it's having the horizontal fascia with the 2 windows on the front and then the 2 roof lights on the back. The second thing is that if members do move to a vote for refusal, Councillor Cartman didn't refer to policy DM32, and I think I just would need him to clarify if he does mean it in accordance with policy DM32. And the issue, it's whilst I've the comments about the local community, planning is not entirely about democracy and what the community think. That if members refuse planning permission, it will be determined by an inspector without any recourse to democratic views. I'm afraid he will assess it in simple terms of, is the harm caused, which is unacceptable given the approval that the authority did and the proposals that the applicants put forward. And coming back to that question about setting a precedent, in terms of the determination of each application, we have to consider the current plans before us not the precedent that it may set if someone doesn't stick.
We lost the last few words, Simon. I don't know whether you want to come back in and just try again.
Sorry, yes. Sorry about that. The question comes that of the looking at if someone doesn't comply with the planning permission, then they can submit a retrospective application, as in this case, and members have to consider that on its own planning merits. And the question that members have to address is it so harmful to be unacceptable? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Michelle, any other speakers?
Councillor Cartman has requested to speak again. Chairman.
Councillor Cartman, if you're the last speaker, you can you might as well sum up as well.
Shall I sum up as well? Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. And I think, all the residents here aren't after stopping the development and extension of this property. They just want the original application enforced. In the application prior to this one, the one based in Weston, we talked about conditions and sending out the enforcement team. But what is the point if then someone can just blatantly ignore it and apply for retrospective? They have no meaning. And that's all they seem to want, is just the original application enforced. I agree. My objection is on CS12, DM32 and DM38. Simon, that's just to clarify. It is about who decides, I think, and it is a merge of democracy and technical skills, but it's a merger of the two. If we all decided on this panel we liked casinos and we could build a casino on that estate, doesn't make it right. And therefore, it's not necessarily about our personal view about whether it's actually in keeping. It's about whether or not it actually is. And my view is the judgment of the residents in this case is more important than our own personal judgment. I think, as Councillor Bridges said, he quite understands why the neighbours are unhappy. Well, in which case I would challenge him. Well, then why is he thinking of voting to approve? Because surely if they're unhappy, it must be because it's detrimental to the street scene. There's unhappy and there's really think it's not very nice. I mean, there's degrees of it, I agree. So I think it's been an interesting debate. I understand where members are coming from. I understand this is about the gables and that there's elements of it which are permitted under permitted development. But for me, it's about not just what's the harm, but it's about who decides. So I am going to go forward I think it goes to a vote now, doesn't it? I think if it's seconded, my proposal is we reject the application based on the CS12, DM32 and 38 on the basis that it's detrimental to the street scene. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you. So we have a proposal to refuse the application. Sue, please conduct the roll call vote.
Thank you, Chairman. I will now be taking the vote from each councillor in alphabetical order, and for each vote taken, the councillor will be confirming that they have heard the whole of the debate unless they state otherwise. Councillor Cartman's proposal is for refusal of item number 7 for the reasons he's just stated on the 3 policies, CS12, DM32 and DM38. When I ask you whether you are voting for, it will be for refusal. When I say against, it will be against refusal. Councillor Bird.
For refusal.
Councillor Bridger.
Against.
Councillor Bryant.
Against.
Councillor Cartman.
For refusal.
Councillor Cole.
Against.
Councillor Crewe.
Against.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
Against.
Councillor Cronolly.
Against.
Councillor Harley's absent. Councillor Leigh Morgan.
You're muted, John.
I can come back.
Pardon. Against.
Thank you, Councillor Leigh Morgan. Councillor McQuillan.
For.
Councillor Payne.
Against.
Councillor Westwood.
Against.
Chairman, that's 4 refusal and 9 against refusal.
Thank you. So we need a fresh proposal.
Move approval, Chairman.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Crew. Is there a seconder?
Yes.
Vice Chairman, thank you very much.
Yes.
Michelle, anybody wishing to speak?
Nothing in chat, Chairman.
I take it, Councillor Crew, you don't want to sum up?
No, quite happy with everything you said, Chairman.
So we have a proposal to approve the application. Sue, please conduct the roll call. Vote.
Chairman.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Payne.
Sorry, can you just confirm that's officers' recommendations with the
It
condition?
is. Yes. Back to you, Sue.
Thank you, Chairman. So this vote is for approval, officers' recommendation. Councillor Bird?
Against.
Councillor Bridger?
For.
Councillor Bryant?
Approval.
Councillor Cartman?
Against.
Councillor Cole?
For.
Councillor Crew?
For.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley?
For.
Councillor Cronolly?
For.
Councillor Leigh Morgan?
For.
Councillor McQuillan?
Against.
Councillor Payne?
For.
Councillor Westwood?
For.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 8, planning appeals. Richard.
Chairman, you've got a full report, so I won't dwell on the outcomes unless members have got any questions. What I would say, though, is perhaps just briefly, councillors might like to hear a little bit about the Bristol Airport appeal, which is in the process but not been formally started, to use the jargon. So what has happened is that Bristol Airport have lodged an appeal against the refusal by the committee back in March. Those papers are currently with the Planning Inspectorate in Bristol. They're the people that validate the process and appoint an inspector, and they act on behalf of the Secretary of State. They're entirely independent. But like a planning application, they have to check they've got everything they need before they start the appeal process. So we're in a bit of a limbo at the minute, which is why people haven't seen much in the way of documentation. What will happen is when the Planning Inspectorate are satisfied they have everything, they will then formally start the appeal process, and we will get a letter that sets out the timetable with a public inquiry date and then all the deadlines that stem from that. We don't know what that will be just yet because Bristol Airport have asked for a longer timetable than would be normal to allow them to update their forecasts and some of the data that flows from that from the time the application was put in, and that's to reflect the COVID pandemic and the recession. The council and the communities have been asked for their comments on that, and the general response is that, particularly from the communities, that the Bristol Airport shouldn't be allowed more time to update their forecasts, and in some respects they're arguing that the appeal is effectively invalid. The council has made a similar comment, but has said that if additional information is to be accepted by the Planning Inspectorate, then the council and everybody else should be given plenty of time to assess it and consult on it. So those views are being considered by the Planning Inspectorate as we speak, and it's we'll get some outcome from that, I suspect, early next month. It does look like, therefore, the public inquiry certainly won't be till the new year, and probably quite possibly not till some distance into the new year, spring, summertime. In the meantime, the council is appointing a team of consultants to act for it on the case. They're almost in place, not quite. We're just working with a couple of firms to finalise the details of that. We have appointed a leading QC to lead the case, and we've already had some sessions with the QC to help shape the evidence. I hope that helps. In terms of wider communications, we have got now a dedicated page on the council's website, which hopefully you might have picked up through members only. And that website web page will have various documents as and when they they are published. And I should say that the Planning Inspectorate don't like us to publish appealed papers until the appeal is live. What we will be doing now is, by the end of this week, putting some FAQs on the website, so that will explain a bit more about the process, some of the jargon, some of the things that yourselves and members of the public might want to understand a bit more about. Hopefully people understand that. I don't know if there's any questions on that or any of the other appeals, but we'll do our best to help if we can.
Councillor Westwood and McQuillan have requested to speak, Chairman.
Councillor Westwood.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just on the points that you brought up there, Rich, where will it be allowed to be debated as far as whether the what the airport is asking for invalidates the appeal? Where will that be allowed to be debated at the appeal?
So the starting point is for the Planning Inspectorate. They will listen to all the arguments put forward by the various parties, including the council, the residents groups and the airport, and they will come to a view based on the appeal regulations as to whether they think the appeal is valid and what the process should be thereafter. So that those process points are governed by the Planning Inspectorate, and there's some very detailed and quite complex regulations that govern this all. And once that conclusion has been reached, then a timetable for the appeal will be published with the inquiry date. And as I said earlier, everything will flow from that.
Right. So we'll know whether the appeal is valid or not pretty much right at the start of the process.
Correct.
There you go. Good. Thank you.
Councillor McQuillan.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the update, Richard, and thank you for noting about the FAQ. I think there's obviously going to be a keen interest in how this proceeds, both within the council and other stakeholders. Is there any more you can tell us? I understand there is some sensitivity about how the council is engaging with ward members and all the various community groups, because I know it's a delicate balance, I can imagine, with sensitivity of information, but there's clearly a lot at stake here and a lot of different stakeholders.
Yes, indeed, and that's one of the reasons, in terms of wider communication, that's one of the reasons why a dedicated web page, I think, is important, because that's the easiest place for people to see what's going on and to see the information. As we get nearer the business end of the appeal, the inquiry and so forth, then the pace of that will pick up. And I think one of the issues we're finding currently is that because there isn't very much going on, people assume things are happening behind closed doors when actually there is not a lot going on. We are in direct contact with the representatives of the key residents groups. We've exchanged correspondence, and we are working in that respect. We are putting out updates through members only. We will hold an all-member briefing at key points so that councillors can hear a bit more about it and ask questions. And I think probably the best time to do that will be once we know what the timetable is, and then we can explain that to you and you can understand a bit more about it. But ultimately, it is, going back to our discussion earlier about technical versus democratic, this is a very evidence-based process, and it's governed very tightly by rules. And as we said at the time the application was being considered, we and all the parties have to evidence our positions, and we have to turn up at the public inquiry, which is quasi-judicial. It's not unlike a court of law. You have the inspector will sit there, and there'll be barristers for either side and witnesses with evidence, and they're cross-examined. And it's a place where designed to get to the bottom of the facts. So as we get closer to that, then we can explain more about the process. And again, the FAQs will explain that.
Michelle.
Thank you, Richard.
Any more comments?
No more comments in chat, Chairman.
Item 8 is for noting, so moving on to item 9, extension of revised delegation arrangements. Richard.
Chairman, yes, this is a fairly straightforward item in the sense that it's members may recall that 5 months ago you agreed to vary the delegation arrangements, so to remove some of the automatic triggers for committee items. And that was partly to help the management of the committee during the pandemic and the lockdown and the virtual meetings. That was for a period of 6 months, which expires shortly, and this item is brought to you just to extend that for a further 6 months. It seems to have operated well over the last 6 months, that the caseload of the committee has been managed. We haven't had things coming unnecessarily, other than when members have wanted them to come. So having a process which relaxes some of the automatic referrals does seem sensible. Doesn't in any shape or form prevent members from referring applications to committee if they want, as we've seen today. It simply means that where there's uncontentious things, they don't have to come simply because the rules say so. Members can still call them in, and hopefully we can agree to roll forward the arrangement for a further 6 months.
Okay. Well, from the chair, I will move officer's recommendation.
Councillor Bridger has a question to ask, Chairman.
Chair, can I just a very quick point?
Sorry, who is it?
Sorry, it's Steve Bridger, Chair, Councillor Bridger.
Well, who's that speaking in the background?
I just want to restart.
Sorry, yeah, some background interference here. Yes, it's just a very quick point. Obviously not directly referenced in the report, but something I see that's obviously part of the response to COVID is obviously the membership of this committee. Obviously, we're reduced to 13, and I understand the reasons why that is. I think we've done quite well today, but I just wanted to make a point really that it would be good if we were 13 all of the time, because I know in some previous committees votes have been taken on some quite controversial applications, and it's been sort of two members there've been apologies from 2 members and someone else hasn't been able to get into the meeting, and the vote's been made by sort of 9 or 10 people, which I don't think is satisfactory. So it's just a call out really to see, obviously there needs to be, I respect the political balance issues, but I think it's incumbent on a member, if they have to give their apologies and they know that in advance, that if they can't reach out initially to their group, that they do their best to reach out beyond that to ensure that we are most of the time 13 members. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, I echo those sentiments.
Chairman, just by way of response, I think that the industry standard is, if I can use that expression, is for smaller committees. I think good practice is that the smaller committee the better, because you can develop more experience, more expertise. It's easier for us to provide you with training events and to help upskill, so that some of the debates that we have on a regular basis can be done in a more informed way. And the larger the membership, the harder that is. And certainly when you go back to the days when all councillors sat on area committee, that was a huge challenge, because we were dealing with 60 councillors all involved in planning applications, and providing events whereby everybody could be brought up to speed with all the process stuff was really, really difficult. So I think I would share the comments about keeping the committee small, and I think that's hopefully something that we can come back to in another way, another forum.
Michelle.
And no other comments in chat, Chairman.
Well, I have moved approval, so I'm looking for a seconder.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. If there are no other comments, Sue, can you conduct the roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chairman. For item 9, the motion is approval as per officer's report. Excuse me. I'll take the vote in alphabetical order. When I say for, it will be for approval. Councillor Bird.
For.
Councillor Bridger.
For.
Councillor Bryant.
For.
Councillor Cartman.
For.
Councillor Cole.
For.
Councillor Crew.
For.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
For.
Councillor Cronolly.
For.
Councillor Leigh Morgan.
For.
Councillor McQuillan.
For.
Councillor Payne.
For.
And Councillor Westwood.
For.
Carried, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 10, urgent business? There is none, so I declare the meeting closed. Thank you all very much.